Okay, let's talk about feed that pigs eat, and also let's talk about the mouth, which is the first gastrointestinal tract of the pigs. Okay. Domesticated pigs are omnivores, and they are eating cereal grains and legume seed meals. We are using ground corn as an energy feeds, and we are using soybean meal as protein supplements. We are mixing these two ingredients in addition to vitamins and minerals to get these complete feeds. Okay. Pigs can eat the mashed form of the feed or pelletized form of the feed, which is called pellet. For pigs, they are mainly using incisors to grab and cut the feed, and they are using molar and premolar to grind and chew the feed. While they are chewing the feed, saliva is added to the feed, and the pig's saliva contains digestive enzymes such as amylase and lipase. Okay, this time let's talk about gastrointestinal tract of pig. I obtained this GI tract from a pig weighing 60 pounds body weight. Okay. Since last time we talked about mouth, we'll start from talking about esophagus to rectum. Once food are ingested and chewed in the mouth, the food will be traveled from the mouth to the stomach. The food will be moved by the muscular movement called peristalsis. Once food are stored in the stomach, and the food will be acidified by the hydrochloric acid, and the pepsinogen, which is the inactive form of enzyme, will be activated by hydrochloric acid to pepsin. And then this pepsin will do protein digestion in the stomach, and the food will travel to small intestine, right here. And the small intestine is made of duodenum and jejunum and ileum. So the first part is duodenum, and this is the beginning of small intestine, and this part receives all the secretion from pancreas. As you see here, the pancreas is right here. This pancreas will secrete digestive enzymes and sodium bicarbonates to neutralize the acid digester from the stomach. And then digester will be digested in the duodenum and jejunum and travel to the large intestine. And these big parts of large intestine. Okay. If you look at the part of small intestine, here you can see the blood capillaries coming out from the part of small intestine. Okay. And that fits into intestinal vein. And all the nutrient will be delivered from the intestine to intestinal vein and eventually goes to the liver. And then after digestion, the feed will move to large intestine. The large intestine is made of cecum and colon and the rectum, which is the last part of gastrointestinal tract. You can clearly see that the cecum is connected with ileum by mesentery, and you can easily identify ileum by that way. And this is the first part of large intestine, which moves to colon and rectum. There are lots of microorganisms that can utilize those nutrients by fermentation. After fermentation, the leftover will be formed as a feces, and they will be excreted. And let's look at the brief size of the GI tract as a whole. As you can see that from the esophagus to the rectum, it is about 60 centimeters. All right, let's talk about gastrointestinal tract of pigs again. This time, we removed all the mesentery membranes, and now you can see a very nicely dissected GI tract from the esophagus to the rectum. Once stomach is full here, like this. And the stomach will release the hydrochloric acid, and that will acidify or digest in the stomach. And then also stomach will secrete an enzyme called pepsinogen, which will be activated by hydrochloric acid, be activated to pepsin, and there you can see that the proteins in the feed will be digested. And after that, the digester will travel to a small intestine. The first part of small intestine is called duodenum. And you can see a nice pancreas here. This pancreas will secrete bicarbonates, which will neutralize digester, which are acid coming from the stomach. So once the digester are neutralized by bicarbonate coming from pancreas, those digester can be further digested by enzymes secreted from pancreas. And these enzymes will digest all carbohydrates, protein, and lipids. And then those nutrients digested will be absorbed, further digested and absorbed in the jejunum, which is the major part of small intestine. You can see the length of jejunum here is very long. And then we'll go to the ileum, which is the end part of small intestine. Once the digestion and absorption occurs in the small intestine, the remaining part will move to large intestine. The first part of large intestine is cecum, and there are lots of microorganisms. Those microorganisms will utilize undigested part of feed by fermentation, and also the large intestine connects to the colon here. This is also another part where the microorganisms will ferment the remaining parts of feeds. From the fermentation, the microorganisms will digest carbohydrate into volatile fatty acids, and the remaining parts will be traveling further to rectum, and then the remaining part will be excreted. Okay, let's look at here. As you see here, small intestine is really long, and there's a good portion of large intestine here too. If I measure the length of small intestine and large intestine, let's see how long they are. By using the ruler here, so about 40 centimeters, and I can count how many lines there are here. By combining all the length here, it is almost 12 meters. For the large intestine, if I also measure the length, I can see that it is almost 3 meters. So small intestine is 12 meters for this animal, and large intestine is 3 meters in this animal. So there are about 4-to-1 ratio between the small intestine and large intestine in terms of the length. Okay, this time, let's see what happens to the feed as pig ingest this, and how the feed will change as it goes through the GI tract. Also, we'll open the GI tract and explain what's inside. First of all, I'd like to open the stomach of the pig. Okay. It's really full with feed. Okay. Let's see what's inside here. As I open the stomach, you can see the digester stored in the stomach. I can pick some with hand here. It's kind of smelly, but if you see this carefully, you can still see the particles of corn, and you can still see the soybean meal. Compare with the feed that pig ate. So it looks very similar. But in the stomach, now the proteins in this feed will be started digested. And then let's look inside of the stomach. Okay, this part is esophagus. And you can see the hole right here, which is coming from esophagus. There's another hole here, okay, which is connected to duodenum. If you look at this part right after the esophagus, you can see the little different color, little pink color compared with other area. This is called esophageal region in the stomach. This area, the tissue doesn't secrete any mucus, so there's no mucus secretion in esophageal region. But a little outside here, which is the beginning part of stomach, this is called cardiac region. And this area, the mucus is secreted to protect the skin from the hydrochloric acid. And a little outside here, these are the area called fundus region. This fundus region is covered by gastric pits. If you see carefully, you can see that the tissue, surface of tissue, is very glandular. It's covered by gastric pits. This gastric pits has two different types of cells inside that you cannot see from here, but inside of pits, there are two types of cells called chief cell and parietal cells. Parietal cells will secrete hydrochloric acid, and the chief cell will secrete pepsinogen. And pepsinogen will be activated to pepsin by hydrochloric acid. In the last part of stomach here, this area is called pylorus region. And this part also secretes mucus to protect its own tissue from the hydrochloric acid. And food will be moved down to the duodenum. Let's go back to the whole tract. This time, let's look at the digesta in the small intestine. Okay. Let's pick one area here. Okay. This is kind of end part of jejunum. I'm going to open this area. You can clearly see the digesta. It's just very wet. From here, you can see that the digesta is very different from what you see from the stomach. All the particles are digested, but you can still see small part of cones here. By this part of small intestine, most of digestible nutrient will be digested, and the nutrient should be absorbed. I'll clean up this area a little bit. Okay, this is inside of small intestine. Of course, it's not easy to see clearly, but the inside of small intestine, the luminal side of small intestine, is covered by the small structure called villi. So there are a lot of, many villi are covering the luminal side of small intestine. Then let's move to large intestine. I'll open the part of colon here. If I show you the content, which is very brownish color, now you can see that the digesta looks more close to the feces. Okay? So you don't see a particle of cones here. You can see the digesta are very smelly after all the fermentation occurs. And in large intestine, all the water will be reabsorbed into the body, and this digesta will become former and become feces, and then will be excreted.